After 2 years of litigation, the case between Old Mutual and its former CEO, Peter Moyo, is back before the High Court sitting in Johannesburg. Moyo is claiming damages against the financial services company after he was fired for conflict of interest, and that was back in 2019. Our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi, is with us in studio as we look ahead to this particular matter. Great to see you, by the way. So, it happened a while ago, and I remember the back and forth between Old Mutual and Peter Moyo. At some stage, he even arrived at work when he wasn't supposed to. But let's go through a quick history lesson. How did we get to a point where a CEO is essentially taking his former employee or employer to court?
Absolutely, and it was quite unprecedented at the time that it happened in 2019. I know 2 years ago was quite some time in the news cycle. But what happened is that Old Mutual found Peter Moyo to be in conflict of his contract, right? They said that his company, NMT Capital, which we have to mention he had declared before he took on the job at Old Mutual, that he had this conflict because NMT had, or Old Mutual rather, had a stake in his company, which was NMT, and then he was subsequently made the CEO of this business. And so at some point along the journey, in the year or so that he was the CEO, he was CEO for about 18 months, Old Mutual found that he was in conflict regarding one specific meeting that happened at NMT where shareholders decided to declare dividends, and Old Mutual claimed that they paid themselves more than they paid Old Mutual, which then resulted in this conflict, which subsequently ended in him being fired. But there was a big back and forth. He initially won his case and was allowed to be reinstated, and then Old Mutual fought back to say, no, we're clear, he can no longer work with us, we've lost trust in him as a CEO, given the severe nature of the conflict, and now we are back in court where he's claiming damages.
Exactly, and a lot of money is involved in here. I remember at the time there's also been conversation about whether or not Peter Moyo will be able to sustain fighting a conglomerate like Old Mutual, right? It was part of the things that would be mentioned at the time is that it's not often that you get an individual coming after an entity like this. How much money are we talking with these damages?
Well, he's claiming 250 million rand in damages.
A measly.
A measly 250 million rand that he's claiming in damages. And he would like to be reinstated as CEO if he wins this challenge. Now, Old Mutual are adamant that they have everything on their side and it won't get to that point, that the claim is not going to be paid and that he will not be reinstated. They have gone ahead looking for a new CEO in the meantime. But this is what we're hearing this week. The case is expected to started yesterday, expected to continue today and through the week. And we'll see what happens with Peter Moyo. Absolutely.
And I'm sure one of the things that even Peter Moyo will be considering is whether this issue of trust could be a barrier, even if he were to win.
I think that's true, and I think that might be the case for all kinds of cases like this. You know, when there is a breakdown in trust and communication between you and your employer, do you still take the decision to stand by it and come back to work, even if you don't trust them as much as they feel they don't trust you, because of you might feel aggrieved in the way that the situation has been handled. And so it will be interesting to see if he wins this, whether he really does go back or whether this was just a show of force in a way to say, well, I will not be bullied by this large conglomerate organization, and I was on the right side of this.
Plenty to consider. Kopano Gumbi, thanks very much indeed for that early morning breakdown. So plenty taking place in the courts, and as you can see, we're watching it all for you as it continues to unfold.